You know what's fascinating about Oscar Wilde? He could destroy someone's entire argument with a single perfectly crafted sentence, yet somehow leave them wanting to buy him a drink afterward. That's the power of real wit. It cuts through pretension and nonsense like a scalpel, but with such elegance that even the victim has to admire the skill. In our current age of social media pile-ons and brutal takedowns, Wilde's approach to verbal combat feels almost civilized, which is precisely why we need to understand what he knew about the role of wit in navigating life's complexities. Oscar Fingal, O'Flaherty Wills, Wilde entered the world on the 16th of October, 1854, in Dublin, into a family that practically invented intellectual showing off. His father, William, was a renowned surgeon and antiquarian who collected folklore and wrote about Irish archaeology. His mother, Jane, published poetry under the pseudonym Speranza and was deeply involved in Irish nationalist politics. The Wilde household was a salon where brilliant conversation was not just encouraged, but expected, where a well-turned phrase could elevate your social standing and a dull observation could sink it entirely. Young Oscar absorbed these lessons early. At Trinity College Dublin and later at Oxford, he distinguished himself not just through academic achievement, but through his ability to charm, provoke, and entertain with language. He understood something that many brilliant people miss, that being right isn't enough if you can't make people want to listen to you. Wit, he discovered, was the spoonful of sugar that made even bitter truths go down smoothly. But what exactly is wit, and why does it matter so much? It's not just being funny, though humor is certainly part of it. Real wit requires intelligence, timing, cultural awareness, and a deep understanding of human nature. It's the ability to see connections others miss, to find the perfect analogy that illuminates a complex situation, to deflate pomposity without destroying the person behind it. Wilde mastered all of these elements, turning conversation into an art form that people still quote more than a century later. His early career in London society was essentially a masterclass in how wit can open doors that talent alone might leave locked. When he arrived in London in the 1870s, he was just another young Irish writer trying to make his mark in a city full of ambitious literary types. What set him apart wasn't necessarily superior writing, though his talent was considerable, but his ability to make himself memorable through brilliant conversation. People invited him to dinner parties, not just because he was clever, but because he was entertainingly clever, because his presence guaranteed that the evening would be quotable. This is something we've largely forgotten in our digital age. We've become so focused on accumulating followers and generating content that we've lost sight of the social function, which serves in real human interaction. Wilde understood that wit isn't just showing off, it's a form of generosity, a way of making ordinary moments more delightful for everyone involved. When he said things like, "I can resist everything except temptation," he wasn't just being clever for its own sake. He was giving people a gift they could unwrap again and again in conversation. The key to Wilde's approach was that his wit was inclusive rather than exclusive. Lesser wits use humor to exclude people, to create in-groups and out-groups based on who gets the joke. Wilde's best observations were accessible to anyone with a basic understanding of human nature. He didn't need obscure references or insider knowledge to make his points. This democratic approach to wit is part of what made him so widely beloved, and what makes his observations still feel fresh today. Consider how he handled criticism of his work. When a critic complained that one of his plays was immoral, Wilde didn't write a lengthy defense or attack the critic's qualifications. Instead, he simply observed that there is no such thing as a moral or an immoral book. Books are well written or badly written, that is all. With a single sentence, he reframed the entire debate, moving it from questions of morality to questions of craft, while simultaneously suggesting that his critic was asking the wrong questions entirely. This technique, using wit to redirect rather than destroy, is something we desperately need in our current moment of cultural warfare. Instead of meeting hostility with hostility, Wilde showed how intelligence and humor could diffuse tension while still making your point. He understood that changing minds requires changing the conversation, and that wit was often the most effective way to do that. His time in America during his lecture tour of 1882 provides another example of wit's practical value. Americans expected to see an effete aesthete they could mock, but Wilde disarmed them with self-deprecating humor and genuine curiosity about American culture. When customs officials in New York asked if he had anything to declare, he allegedly replied, "I have nothing to declare except my genius." The line was perfect. It was obviously theatrical and self-aggrandizing, but delivered with such charm that it became endearing rather than annoying. This ability to be simultaneously serious and playful about himself was perhaps Wilde's greatest gift. He could make grand pronouncements about art and beauty, while acknowledging the absurdity of making grand pronouncements. This self-awareness, communicated through wit, made him seem more rather than less profound. People trusted him precisely because he didn't take himself entirely seriously. But wit isn't just about social success. It's also a survival mechanism, and Wilde's later experiences prove this point dramatically. When his relationship with Lord Alfred Douglas led to his trials for gross indecency, wit became both his shield and his sword. Even facing imprisonment and social destruction, he couldn't resist the perfect comeback. When the prosecutor asked how he could explain the younger man's devotion to him, Wilde replied that it was the love that dare not speak its name, a phrase that turned a hostile courtroom question into a moment of unexpected poetry. The tragedy is that wit, for all its power, couldn't save him from the brutal realities of Victorian morality. After his imprisonment and exile, Wilde found that his greatest weapon had been dulled by suffering. The wit was still there, but it had acquired a bitter edge that made people uncomfortable rather than delighted. This transformation illustrates both the power and the limitations of wit as a life strategy. What makes Wilde's example particularly relevant today is how he understood wit as a form of resistance. In a society that valued conformity and moral certainty, his playful approach to serious subjects was genuinely subversive. He used humor to smuggle dangerous ideas past people's psychological defenses, making them laugh before they realized they were being challenged to think differently. This technique is more necessary than ever in our polarized world. Direct confrontation rarely changes minds. It just makes people dig deeper into their existing positions. But wit can slip past ideological barriers because it engages people's emotions and intelligence simultaneously. When Wilde observed that we are all in the gutter, but some of us are looking at the stars, he was making a profound point about human nature while making people smile. The combination is irresistible. His approach to social criticism through wit offers a model for how to engage with injustice without becoming consumed by anger. Wilde could skewer the pretensions and hypocrisies of Victorian society without losing his fundamental humanity or sense of joy. He understood that righteous indignation, however justified, often alienates the very people you're trying to reach. Wit, by contrast, creates a moment of shared understanding that can open minds to new possibilities. The practical applications of Wilde's approach extend far beyond drawing room conversation. In professional settings, the ability to diffuse tension with appropriate humor, to make complex ideas accessible through clever analogies, to redirect unproductive discussions through playful reframing. These are skills that can transform careers and relationships. Wilde showed that wit isn't frivolity. It's a sophisticated form of emotional and intellectual intelligence. But wit requires courage as well as cleverness. It means being willing to say things that might not land, to risk being misunderstood, to challenge conventional wisdom in ways that might make people uncomfortable. Wilde's career demonstrates both the rewards and the risks of this approach. His wit made him famous and beloved, but it also made him enemies among people who felt threatened by his refusal to take seriously the things they held sacred. This is perhaps why wit matters most in difficult times. When everything seems dark and serious and hopeless, the person who can find something genuinely funny or insightful about the situation provides a kind of service to humanity. They remind us that human consciousness is capable of rising above immediate circumstances, of finding perspective and even joy in the midst of struggle. Wilde's prison writings, particularly De Profundis, show how wit can evolve under pressure. The playful bon mots of his society years give way to deeper insights about human nature, suffering, and redemption. The wit is still there, but it's been tempered by genuine wisdom, earned through genuine pain. This transformation suggests that wit isn't just a social skill, but a form of resilience, a way of maintaining your essential humanity, even under the worst circumstances. What we can learn from Wilde today is that wit is not just entertainment. It's a way of thinking, an approach to life that values cleverness, beauty, and human connection over mere correctness or efficiency. In our age of algorithmic thinking and binary choices, Wilde's example reminds us that the most interesting truths often exist in the spaces between conventional categories, and that the best way to illuminate those truths is often through a well-placed joke or unexpected observation. His legacy suggests that wit matters because it humanizes us. It shows that we're capable of rising above our immediate self-interest, of finding joy in language and ideas for their own sake, of connecting with others through shared laughter and insight. In a world that often seems determined to divide us into warring camps, wit offers a different possibility: the chance to disagree without being disagreeable, to challenge without destroying, to be serious about important things without losing our sense of play. Perhaps most importantly, Wilde demonstrated that wit is fundamentally optimistic. It assumes that people are intelligent enough to appreciate cleverness, that language is flexible enough to capture complex truths, that human interaction can be a source of mutual delight rather than just competition for scarce resources. These assumptions feel almost radical in our current moment, which is precisely why we need them. In the end, wit matters because it represents the best of human intelligence, not just the ability to analyze and categorize, but the capacity to synthesize, to play, to find unexpected connections that illuminate old problems in new ways. Wilde showed us that this capacity isn't just pleasant to have, it's essential for navigating a complex world with grace and humanity intact. Every time someone diffuses a tense situation with perfect timing, every time a clever observation helps people see familiar things from a new angle, every time humor creates connection across difference, Oscar Wilde's spirit lives on. And in a world that often seems to have forgotten how to laugh at itself, that might be exactly what we need to remember how to be human together. That is it for today. You've been listening to The Guide on the Side, where I share what I'm learning from people, books, and conversations. I hope something here stays with you, sparks a thought, or opens a door. I'm Ivan, and I'll be back soon with more. Until next time, may your days be full of curiosity, and I'll see you in the next episode.